Love to eat turkey. Love to eat turkey. Love to eat turkey.
I got Val with me here today, and he's going to share he's our first guest for this Turkeys for Turkey Month, Turkey Games for Turkey Month. I think that's the title we're going to go with. I guess we'll find out. Good. That's one approval. That's all I need. If one other person approves it, we'll move forward with it. So, first question to you, Val, is tell us about yourself. What kind of gamer are you?
So, a casual at best. Compared to the rest of the group, especially in the Discord, I'm very much not as much of a gamer as I used to be, even going back 10 years. I only own, as far as latest consoles, I own a Switch, and I own a very small amount of games. I have a gaming PC with a big library of Steam games that I've never probably touched in my life. And other than that, I have an old PS3 that I bought way late in its life, and it was used, and I haven't really had any interest in other modern consoles, PS4, PS5, the Series X, whatever they call it now. So yeah, I'm more of a tinker. I actually really dig tinkering with like emulators, RetroPie, stuff like that. I actually find myself doing that more than actually playing the games once I set them up. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my thing now. Yeah, so as far as like gaming tastes, I would say it's retro first and foremost. It's simple arcade games. They're playable for like 15 minutes and then you're done, and there's really no commitment to it. Stuff that lets, like big RPGs, I can't do those anymore. I used to play some RPGs back in my 20s. Nowadays, I just don't really have the time for that stuff. So that's kind of what I focus on, is just small games that take little to no commitment to play.
All right. So can you give us an example of a game you have spent any time on recently?
Recently, actually, yeah, I did play. I mentioned in the previous podcast I was on the Ocarina of Time. I actually did play through the whole thing. So that's an exception. I did recently play the latest Resident Evil 2 remake. I played through Leon's campaign. I didn't finish Claire's because it was too hard, and I kept running to the tyrant. So screw that guy.
Right.
Yeah, other than that, I do have some stuff lined up that I do want to play, Dead Space being one of them. It was actually kind of inspired by a previous podcast that y'all recorded, so I really want to play through that finally. But other than that, like I said, it's been really simple stuff. Mario 35 has been great. Mm-hmm. Because you're done in like 10 minutes,
right? And
it's perfect for me. So
yeah, it's easy to just jump in and jump out. Mm-hmm. All right, so what game or game series is it that you want to detest with us today?
Oh man, so I was really, really having a hard time thinking about this. There was some obvious answers I had in my head and some not so obvious ones. So I kind of narrowed it down to this one because I really, really hated this game. It's Sonic Adventure 2 for the Dreamcast. I bought this game.
Sorry, Mike B.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I know he's going to give me crap about it, but I don't really care. I did play the first Sonic Adventure, and I liked it. It kind of starts the three Sonic. Well, it does literally start the three Sonic games, and its storylines where they're mixing Sonic with like regular people, and they start introducing these other side characters that I don't really care about. But Sonic Adventure 2, it has a very special place in the hatred of my heart, I guess I could say.
But it's in your heart.
Yeah, it's there. Man, I hate that game. And so I guess let me go into why. First of all, it starts that really terrible Sonic 3D universe. Like Shadow the Hedgehog is introduced in that. And I just really, really detest what they've done with Sonic since they started those games. I'm a classic Sonic player. That's probably one of my most favorite franchises of all time. So I played all the Genesis ones. I loved Sonic Mania that came out just a few years ago. It went back to its roots. It was it's the game that I would have created for myself had I been able to create a Sonic game, right? So with Sonic 2, not only that, like I mentioned, the storyline I really hate. The camera's terrible, but it's kind of indicative of games at the time. I think a lot of games that were starting to become 3D really had terrible cameras.
Mm-hmm.
But the worst part of the game is there's. Have you played it by chance, Bobby?
Yes, I played it.
Okay, yeah. And have you finished it?
No, I never finished it. And
okay.
Mind you, the version I played was on the GameCube, so I don't know if there were improvements.
I think it's the same game overall. But okay. So as you probably know, the game's kind of three different games in one, right? You have the Sonic Shadow portions of the game, which are kind of on rails, running really fast, collecting rings and stuff like that, and that's actually really fun. It's not very in-depth gameplay, but it's fun to play, right?
Right.
The second portion of the game is the Eggman and Tails portions, where they're basically in mechs and you're supposed to kind of shoot stuff, and it's okay. It's fun for like the first few times, and it just gets kind of dull because there's not really much to it. But then you get to Sonic, or I'm sorry, not Sonic. You get to Knuckles, and you get to that flying rat prostitute thing. I don't even remember its name.
Rouge, right?
Is it Rouge? It's Rouge.
Yeah,
yeah.
Rouge.
She's a bat that dresses like a skank. The purpose of their portion of the game is to go digging around looking for pieces of the Chaos Emerald. And man, I actually recall the one that I think I stopped playing the game at. It's the level with Knuckles where you're flying around like this Halloween themed level, and there's this soundtrack playing this shitty rap song just over and over and over again. And it's a timed level. You have a time limit, and you're supposed to, like I said, you're supposed to find the Chaos Emerald pieces and then dig for them and find them. And I can't even remember how many you're supposed to find, but there's a radar system that's completely useless. So the emerald icon, it starts glowing when you get closer to the shard, and it starts yellow and it gets green. It starts blinking, and I swear I could not find all of them as hard as I tried. No matter how green and how blinky that stupid radar thing turned, it completely ruined the game for me. Like I really wanted to finish it, and I finished that. I think I went through 2 times where I couldn't finish that level because I kept running out of time, and I couldn't bear myself to play it again. Like, it just felt like a complete fucking chore. And I don't understand why they would make a third of the game that, because that's basically it, right? Like, you're trading off different characters, and Knuckles and Rouge are sharing that format, and it's awful. It's so it's so tedious, and it's just completely no fun to do at all, man. And it sucked because the game had some cool cutscenes. I remember early on, and I just couldn't play it. I could, like, as hard as I tried to beat those 2 stupid levels, I just could not bring myself to do it again. And that game completely ruined me for Sonic 3D games, like total, like, because I think they got worse after that.
Well, I mean, if Sonic the Hedgehog, what was it, 2006 is any indicator?
For the Xbox. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of just like a running joke now how terrible Sonic games are in 3D, whereas like Mario made a flawless transition to 3D. Like, where did Sega go wrong? And that, I think it's that game. That's where they went wrong,
because they went with they stuck with the blueprint that sucked. Yeah,
they did. If it had been like Sonic Adventure is basically the first. It plays very much like the first third of Sonic Adventure 2, right? Where you're Sonic and
right.
Shadow, and you're doing the on rails running stuff. If it had been the whole game like that, I probably would have finished it and played it. Like, played the whole thing through. But yeah, they just had to ruin it.
Well, I think that's a prime choice here for a game that you are infuriated about.
Yeah.
So then, so not only is it then Sonic 2, it's really the Sonic 3D games as a whole, particularly from 2 on, that you have a great distaste for, right?
it's like the storylines are cheesy, the characters are terrible. It's just weird. Like I mentioned earlier, like Sonic now lives in like the normal world and he's walking around like regular people. That's just dumb. Like I don't understand why that's a thing now. It was not like that in the original 2D games. The 2D games had their own world, right?
Right.
And it's just odd, and I don't like it.
Yet Super Mario Odyssey was able to do that with New Donk City, and people were okay with it.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, but see, they do it right. Like it plays like it's fun to play Mario Odyssey, and that's actually my favorite part of the game is New Donk City.
New Donk City.
Yeah, I absolutely love that part of the game. But it's just, Nintendo takes very good care of their properties, so it's very, very rare that you'll get a crappy game out of them. Whereas with Sega, they'll just kind of throw it to a team that doesn't really have the same kind of love and care for the property.
Well, and then Nintendo, it's not like Nintendo releases a 3D Mario game every year.
Right.
They take their time to develop the games. I mean, granted, Galaxy 2 came out quickly after Galaxy 1, but they took their time to establish Galaxy between Sunshine and Galaxy, and then Galaxy 2 just carried over the same engine as Galaxy 1, right? They just expanded on it, made it more challenging, added new levels. And Sonic Team, it's like they're always trying to, except for Sonic 2, it's like they're always trying to reinvent the wheel from there and release it way too soon.
Right. And then on your note about Galaxy 2, it's the more revered game, right? Like of the two, people tend to prefer Galaxy 2. So even just that short interval, you still got a better game out of it. That's just Nintendo, and I'm probably sound like a big Nintendo fanboy, which is fine because I was a Sega fanboy back in my teenage years. So maybe I just transitioned. I don't know.
Yeah, keep in mind, Val loves Sega. It's just this particular game that he has difficulty dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so dishonorable mentions, games that you wanted to talk about, but since I only limited to you one, what you got?
It's Shenmue. I bought Shenmue with great intentions of really, really liking the game. And I played it for a little bit, and I just noticed how much of a chore it felt. The storyline was awesome. The graphics were incredible for the Dreamcast. I guess what is that called?
QuickTime events.
Thank you. Jeez, I don't know why I felt it. It escaped my mind. The QuickTime events were like okay because I was used to that stuff. But I'll tell you where I stopped playing the game, and I probably tell everybody this story that knows me personally. There's a part where you're supposed to play pool against some sailors to get some information, right? And you have to make the shot. And if you don't make the shot, you have to leave the bar and come back to do it later. The problem is you have to wait till literally the next day to repeat the process. And there's nothing you can do about it. You have to wait the whole, I guess, a 24-hour day in the game. You have to wait again to try playing pool again.
Yeah, and we're not talking about 10 minutes of game time. We're talking about 40 minutes until the next day.
Yeah, so you're just farting around for 40 minutes doing nothing because you can't redo this part right away. Mm-hmm. And that really pissed me off. I remember, and I think I stopped playing the game right after that. However, I understand why people like it. It was revolutionary for its time. And it's a very rich story. So it's probably one of those games maybe I would try and give it another chance one day.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today, and I hope everyone watching the video did enjoy your ranting on Sonic 2. Mike, except for Mike B. We know Mike B is going to come back and hate on that, but that's okay.
I'm ready.
You're ready?
Yeah.
We should do a podcast of that, of just you and Mike throwing down verbally. All right. Well, thank
Mike. Yeah, thanks. No, thank you. And this is really a lot of fun, so I appreciate it.
Good, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm here with Frank. He's here with me for our Turkey Game for Turkey Month podcast episode. He's going to share with us the game that he doesn't like. But before we get started on there, Frank, tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of gamer would you describe yourself as?
I can't really say that I'm like one particular thing and that's it, because I like dabbling in FPS. I like a lot of fighting games. I do like story-driven games, action games, some open world. So I can't really say I'm one thing or the other. I'd say what you guys know me for, of course, the most is horror games. So I'd say that's probably how I would identify myself if I was looking outside.
Like as we know you, you don't obviously hold yourself to only ever playing horror games. You have a very wide taste in games. So what game series or game are you going to share with us today?
Okay, so when I was younger, I really didn't have a lot of my own games because my parents didn't like me playing games because I was very distracted by them. I've shared that before. When I did finally get an NES, it was secondhand and it came with a whole bunch of games, and I was like, cool. And there was one game where it had no redeeming qualities to it, and I still would play it because it was one of the games in my library, and I was playing video games, so I just did the best I could to try to muscle through it and just tolerate it. But Days of Thunder for the NES is one of the worst games, not only that I've ever played, but that I actually hate. And I don't know how many people have actually played that game, but I hate it. It's a terrible, terrible game, and I sunk way too many hours on a game.
So can you elaborate? Because I think Days of Thunder is something our audiences may not be familiar with. So can you elaborate on what exactly is the gameplay of Days of Thunder?
Okay, well, it's a movie tie-in game, so there's already your first red flag. And then I don't know if it was an LJN game, but it's just a racing game, but it's not even a good racing game. Like it's not like super actiony, like the arcade style, like driving and you think of something simple like Mario Kart or Spy Hunter. I mean, just racing games. And this game, you're literally trying to get first place, but you have to manage your resources on your car. So, if you grind up against the wall, the tires on that side are going to go bad, and it's going to be harder to control it. And if somebody, bumps into the back of you, you'll start leaking gas and stuff like that. And what really ruins the game is that it's such a slow driving game. It's boring. It's a boring racing game. How the hell do you make a boring racing game? Well, it's stock car racing, so you have to qualify for races. You have to beat certain times, which sometimes I think are like very unreasonable. I mean, I only ever got to I think the third race in the game, because it gives you the 3 opportunities to win first place, and if you don't, then it's game over, and that's it. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And so you qualify and then you race. And what makes it so hard is that you have to manage your resources, but of course the computer players don't. So they're still racing while you're getting your tires changed out, while they're fixing your engine or whatever it is. So, I mean, I don't know. I know that there's probably people who've mastered that game because, there's always a dedicated fan base to speedrun games or master them or whatever. But that is a game that I never got any better at. And that's one of the reasons that it really upsets me, is because I try different strategies. As a kid, you try to problem solve, especially with the NES games. They were Nintendo hard. You've heard that phrase before. That game never got any easier. I was like, no, I'm just going to keep going until I can't drive or control my car easily. I just got to make sure I'm in first. And the best I ever did, I think, was third place on any of the races. And of course, third place isn't good enough. You have to get first place. And it's just a broken game, man. It really is. It pisses me off to this
Sounds
day.
Sounds fun, watching you get pissed off playing Days of Thunder.
It's not. I'm like, I mean, the Schadenfreude may be enjoyable, but I hate that game to death.
Any dishonorable mentions?
Yes. And I would say they're actually both last generation and this generation. So one of them is Castlevania Lords of Shadow, which I talked about during the Castlevania podcast, which was the reboot of the franchise on PS3. And I played it, and it just didn't feel like a Castlevania game, and I hated it, and I haven't gone back to it. I do want to give it another opportunity, but it just didn't feel like a Castlevania game. And the other 1/2 is Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil Revelations 2. Now, Resident Evil 6, it didn't feel like Resident Evil. I didn't play enough of it, but even watching the gameplay, I was like, that's just too over the top, ridiculous. And then I played Resident Evil Revelations 2, and I hated the way it played. I got further than I did in 6, but even I couldn't even finish the first mission. I was like, this is clunky. This feels like a mobile game that was put on console, even though like Revelations, the first one, was put on hand. It was originally on a handheld and then got ported. This one felt like it was taking a step backwards. It felt like it was a mobile game. I was just like, this is so not controlling. It's not fun at all. So, and it's a Resident Evil game, so that's what the reason it's a dishonorable mention is. And especially since I like the first Revelations game.
Well, thank you, Frank, for your time. I appreciate you sharing with us. So there you go, have it, folks. Never play Days of Thunder
on NES. I don't know if there are any other games for any other consoles, but on NES, you might as well just kill yourself.
Thank you, Frank.
That's what I thought. One more time.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here with my buddy Mike B, continuing our turkey games for Turkey Month. And Mike B is going to share his turkey of a game with us today. But first, he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. Tell us what kind of games you like, Mike.
We're just going to go off. If you haven't heard me before, I will rant on forever about Sonic. So that's probably my main game. But as a type of gamer, primarily when I started in my teens, I was mostly into the first-person shooters like Halo, some of the Call of Duties, anything like that. It really got me to like spend lots of time, hours wasted on games doing that kind of stuff. But overall, I'm well-rounded. I enjoy playing all types.
Cool. So then what game is it that you're going to share with us today?
What am I sharing again?
Yeah.
The turkey game?
Yep.
I'm going to have to say every single Predator game that's out there.
Every single one? So you couldn't just pick one?
No, not Alien versus Predator, but like a single like Predator game based
on
Predator.
Which is Predator focused.
Yeah, every single one has been terrible. And I love Predator so much. So we could say, well, like I remember playing the Genesis one. I rented it and I was really excited to try it. And it was just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's beyond whatever. I can't even enjoy it. You don't even enjoy it at all. And then not till I got older, I never had a PS2. And when I finally got one, I was like, okay, I'm going to like get some stuff from the library that's from PS2. And I didn't even know there was a Predator for the PS2. And I was like, whoa, that's awesome. So I had to get myself a copy of that, and then I was let down on that one. Also.
That one was Concrete Jungle, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's I don't know. It felt like it was kind of like you're playing like GTA 3, but it's just garbage. Like it had that open world feel, but you really were restricted a lot. So yeah,
invisible walls and shit.
Yeah, and then the newest one, which is I think $30 or $40, the PS4 one, the Hunting Grounds.
Yeah,
I was excited about that, but then that beta came out, and you could just visually, it just looks terrible. There's like pixels everywhere, and you're like, dang, like PS2 graphic. The PS2 one looks better than this one, you know.
That one's like supposed to be an asymmetrical heart, like Friday the 13th, right? Or
yes,
like Dead by Daylight. Yeah.
So one person's a predator, and then he's hunting everyone, and I'm not really a big fan of those games, so I kind of knew. I was thinking about getting it because I was like, I'm just going to get it because it's Predator. I know the game's going to be garbage. But then when I played the beta, I was like, you know what? I'll wait until, I find this like at a Savers or a thrift shop,
So you played the beta then, though, right?
Yes.
So what was it about the beta, aside from the graphics, that turned you off?
Actually, just besides the graphics, the gameplay balance was really bad to begin with. But I expected that. I knew eventually they're going to probably fix gameplay balance, or try to at least, but now they're probably going to abandon the game because it didn't do so well, and it obviously didn't. The only plus thing I could say about it is running around the trees as the Predator is pretty cool. It just feels cool, but other than that, even trying to attack the humans kind of gets boring. But that's about it. It just makes you wish there was a single player campaign of like just the Predator when you're running around as him. But that's about it.
Which is kind of something on your wish list, right? That's the kind of game you want.
Yeah, single player Predator game, which is you just have to settle with Alien versus Predator because those are good games, and just go through the Predator campaign. Those are pretty good.
Those are good. Those Predator campaigns are my favorite. They are the best.
Yeah.
What was it about the Sega Genesis Predator game that you didn't like?
The Predator was more like a what do you call it? First of all, I was thinking you're going to be the Predator, but of course you're not. You're what was his name?
Oh,
Danny
you played the
Glover's
Danny
character.
Glover character in that game?
Yeah.
So it's based on the Predator 2 movie.
Yes, and I forgot the character's name. I can't believe I forgot it. But you play as him, and you're fighting crime lords and drug dealers and stuff like that. And then the screen will just go through the point of view of a crosshair, kind of like a Shredder, or what do you call that in the Ninja Turtles, the Craig?
In the was it Turtles in Time? When you can throw,
so.
when you throw the foot soldiers at the camera, and then you got to fight
Yes.
Shredder. Yeah.
It does that, and all of a sudden the Predator's aiming at you, and you have to like avoid it. So, and I was like, that's lame. But plus, the game was very difficult. I think it's one of those ones where it's difficult because they didn't really play it to like see how well it balances out. Plus, older games like that were just really difficult to begin.
Especially licensed games.
Yeah. But yeah, that was disappointing. So I never even got far in that game. It's really hard. I've never actually tried to go back into it. Maybe I might like it now. I don't know.
Probably not. I doubt it's going to hold up.
If not, I'll probably just get a Game Genie and just do it that way.
Do you still have the PS2 game, The Concrete Jungle?
No, I don't have that.
Oh, okay. I'm wondering how it would play now.
No, it's not good though. I mean, it wasn't a few years ago that I got a PS2, so I still remember it vividly that it's not that great.
It still stands out. It's stuck with you.
Yeah.
Well, then
it would work perfectly today though. I mean, with games seeing like, if you had the Predator doing executions on people, it'd be really cool. Like PS5 or, Xbox One Series X.
Well, it's funny because like, when we think about Predator, especially Predator 2, there's, he's hunting people down and killing them and then saving parts of them as trophies. Is like, well, if they had given that to Rockstar in the PS2 era, they could have just taken the engine for Manhunt and then just swap out Predator.
I didn't think about that. That would be an awesome idea. Predator strangles a guy with a plastic bag.
It's like this is the down and out Predator. He doesn't have his weapon, so he's got to use whatever he can find on Earth.
Yeah.
He's wearing a hobo coat and a hobo hat.
It's perfect because then like that's a perfect idea because it could be like he gets captured in a military base and then he's escaping and hiding from the cameras and all that stuff like that.
Dude, that would be cool. I hope someone watches this and gets an idea and makes a Predator game like that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, without first they got to give royalties to Bobby first.
Well, we'll split them, bro. We'll split them.
You just came up with that idea.
How about any honorable or dishonorable mentions? Any other games on your radar that you didn't like?
The Chester Cheetah game, or the Cheetos.
Wasn't that NES game?
It was on both.
Oh, it was on Genesis too, yeah.
Yeah, so I got it on Genesis, and it was just I was a little kid, and I was like, "Oh, look, it's the Chester Cheetah. That's cool." And then the game's just clunky and just terrible. It like doesn't
even as a young kid, you understood that.
Yeah, that I was like, this is awful. It's one of those ones where you rent it, and then after 5 minutes, you're like, damn, I wish we could go back to the video store and just rent something else.
Was it one of those 5-day rentals where you had to keep it?
Yeah, and since back then it was like what $6 for like 5 days or $7 for 5 days. I was like, oh man, and I didn't rent it on Tuesday where it's 2 for Tuesday, so I was like, oh, I'm just stuck with this.
I forgot. Was that Hollywood Video 2 for Tuesday or something?
Yeah. Oh, that's a quick thing too. I always thought Hollywood Video was better than Blockbuster, but that's just me.
I agree, man. I liked it a lot more. I was sad when they went out of business, so then we had to rent from Blockbuster, and it wasn't as good.
Oh, and when Hollywood Video went out of business, I just ran in there like, "What are you selling?" Because they're selling all their stuff.
Yeah,
I was like, I got to go through all that stuff.
Yeah, they had a lot of games on there. Unfortunately, a lot of them weren't worth it, the damn. But sometimes you got lucky and found some gems.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, man. You take care.
All right, thanks for having me, man.
Laters. Hey, now I'm here with Nathaniel. He's our next in our line of many individuals sharing with us games that they do not have a very great fondness for our turkey games for the turkey month. So, Nathaniel, I'm going to go ahead and ask you first. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of gamer would you consider yourself to be?
Probably lapsed gamer is the most accurate way to put it. The last console, not that I played, but that I ever bought with my own money, was a PlayStation 2. That was because I needed a DVD player. So, a retro. That's probably a positive spin to put on that. So most of my samples are going to be from older stuff, 8-bit, 16-bit, maybe a little bit PlayStation 1 era, but I've played since then with you guys and at friends' houses and things like that, but I can't pretend that I've kept up the way most of these other folks have.
All right, so let's get on to the game. What game or game series is it that you're going to share with us today?
I picked a specific game which is maybe emblematic of a larger type of game that I don't like, but the specific sample here that I went with is Spider-Man and X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. For the Super Nintendo, I think there was a Genesis version, and I assume it was just, like every Genesis game, it was just the Super NES one, except 10% worse. Yeah, this was during an era. This came out around 1992, I believe. Mm-hmm. And are you familiar with this one?
Yes, I did unfortunately have to play it as well.
Okay. Yeah, I not to eat up too much time, but if people are not clear on this one, Spider-Man and 4 of the X-Men team up to beat Arcade, who is kind of like if you crossed the Riddler with Elton John. So he puts everybody into death traps. Arcade, the character, not the medium, is if Gamergate were a human being, it would be Arcade.
I just think it's interesting that you say he's like Elton John and Riddler, and I do remember Elton John always getting in trouble setting traps for people. He did that so often.
That's right. Yeah, like that one time he trapped a man in a rocket, famously.
And sang about it.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, this was the first time Arcade had popped up in a video game, and the last, for all I know. And the funny thing is, he is not actually a bad choice, despite being kind of a cornball villain. The problem with a lot of these old, like, comic-based video games is that they don't make a lot of logical sense. There's no reason all these bad guys would be working together. And so if you pick a character like Arcade or Mysterio or somebody like that, it makes sense because then you can say the whole game is just an illusion.
Right.
Like it's all a bunch of death traps that Arcade built.
Right.
So that at least tracks from a logical perspective. It doesn't make the game any better. Yeah. And should I just dive into it, why I don't like it?
Yeah. Please give us the juicy details.
All right. Well, I feel like my marching orders for this were not the worst game I've ever played, because this is nowhere near the worst game I've played. Mm-hmm. The most hated game.
Right.
And for me, that kind of tracks towards the most disappointing. Mm-hmm. And circa 1992, as a much younger man, or child, some would say, I was a Marvel fan. And kind of fell by the wayside over the years, but yeah, 1992, Nathaniel, a Spider-Man X-Men crossover, I was there for it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I was really looking forward to this, and it came out, and it's bad in a really bland way, because it feels like a white-hot license, like a property fell into their lap, which I guess it did. And they did virtually nothing with it. And I won't go into this and make it an hour long or anything, but if you research the game, apparently they were threatening to take the license back. And there were 3 different production companies working on this at the same time.
Wow.
Which is one reason it's such a weird nightmare of a game. I feel like the very best superhero games are the ones that key into what is appealing about the characters. Mm-hmm. That's why there have been a couple really, really good Spidey games later on, because that's a character who would actually be pretty fun to be in real life.
Right.
You swing around, jump off buildings, all that good stuff. None of that is in this. You just shoot robots and swing at robots, and that's all you can do. And then when you get to the later levels, there's no reason or rhyme. Wolverine is in an evil funhouse where he fights toys. Cyclops is in a mine shaft. So a bunch of caves. I'd never seen that in a video game before. Gambit is a weird, game. So he fights playing cards and chess pieces. And Storm is underwater, which... I'm gonna put this to you, Bobby. Has there ever been a good underwater level ever to this day in a video game?
I will argue that some of the underwater levels in Donkey Kong Country are good. Like, I actually enjoy playing those, but it does help that the music is incredible in those underwater levels too. But yes,
don't you get to ride a swordfish?
Yeah, at some point, if you can find Ungarde, you can ride him around.
Okay. So there may be exceptions that prove this rule, but yeah, it's just anytime you got to an underwater level, playing Earthworm Jim, get to an underwater level, well, this sucks. The only thing that keeps Super Mario Brothers 3 from being a perfect video game is the water levels.
The water levels, yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, so you take Storm, and all she does is swim around and have her air supply run out. Weird choice for that character, too.
Exactly.
Somebody who can fly and shoot lightning and everything. So yeah, the whole thing is just such a mess, such wasted potential. It feels like they took the two most popular comic properties of the day, and then they cobbled together a game where every single level feels like an insanely hard tutorial level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all like the most 101 cave level, water level. Nothing specific or fun or plays on the characters in any sort of interesting way. The game is also just bananas hard in a way that it doesn't need to be. And you would occasionally get, there's Carnage. There's a bad guy that you might recognize from the comics. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, it's just robots and soldiers.
Right.
So I get that you're not going to program every individual minion to be a different one of the 1,000 bad X-Men mutants, but still a little extra effort would work better than just laser turrets over and over and over and over. And this game came from Acclaim/LJN.
Oh, it was an LJN.
And they have a long history of doing shit like this.
Yeah. They
put out on NES the terrible Spider-Man game, the terrible Wolverine game. And one reason I picked this, besides just, memories almost 30 years later of frustration, which apparently have not gone away. More than that, it pointed towards the fact that licensed games tend to be god-awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once in a blue moon, there'll be an exception to that. But when you are a little kid, like when I was real young, I didn't know what a good game was supposed to be. I didn't know that I was supposed to be playing Faxanadu and Secret of Gaia and all these other things, or Secret of Mana or whatever the hell it's called. And so if you're a little kid, you've played Mario, you've played Mega Man, I guess.
Right.
The next step is you're looking for a game to play. Of course, you're going to be drawn to licensed stuff. Yeah. And so you get drawn into, does it have Spidey in it? Does it have the Ninja Turtles in it? Mm-hmm. And I will say, at least the Ninja Turtles, I almost picked that first one for NES, by the way. But at least those got good after a while, because after that, they're all beat-em-ups.
Right.
With the Marvel stuff, largely thanks to Acclaim and LJN, I must have played a dozen of these things that were just the biggest drag. No fun, in no way representative of these cool books I was reading at the time. Just walking around mine shafts endlessly and dying a tenth of the way through the game.
All right. Well, how about any dishonorable mentions? Anything else that you had thought about that you want to mention?
There were a couple. Dishonorable mentions would be all of the other LJN Acclaim Marvel games. Right. Goes without saying. As I said, I almost picked Ninja Turtles 1. which I will kind of stand by as a terrible waste. It's something that probably a lot of kids were looking forward to when that game came out. I don't think it's as purely obnoxious as this is.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the big one there, if they had just put the damn water level as like the second to last level as opposed to the second level, I think people would have much warmer memories of that game.
Yeah.
So it's bad, but it's not quite as bad. And unlike Arcade's Revenge, it's then followed immediately by some fun sequels. And then there's I want to say Battletoads, but the thing with Battletoads, I don't think that's a bad game. I just think it's insanely difficult.
Yeah.
And that's that's the main hang up there. Like, it's a decent looking game given what was available at the time. It has a little bit of a sense of humor. There's a good deal of variety to it. It's essentially a good game that they accidentally set to God mode the entire time. Or the opposite of God mode, whichever you prefer. So yeah, I have a special hatred for licensed properties because looking back on it now, I just feel like, man, I should have just been playing ActRaiser.
Well, Nathaniel, I appreciate your time. This is a lot of fun. I'm glad to know that we share some taste in what is bad.
Yes. Isn't it lovely that we hate the same
Yeah,
thing?
it is.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was fun to dish about this and exorcise some demons from 1992.
Hopefully you'll be able to sleep at night from now on.
Oh, God. Arcade's stupid red face dancing around my head.
All right, thanks, Nathaniel.
No problem. Take care.
You too.
Hola.
All right, now I'm here with my friend Mike Prime. He is going to share with us for the game that he dislikes for our Turkey Game for Turkey Month podcast, which is, I was going to say series of podcasts, but we're actually just doing this all in one shot. But anyway, let's get rolling. Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of gamer are you?
I would say for me, I'm very much a guy who enjoys story in games, like heavily story based. I tend to play a lot of RPGs for that reason. I don't know. I just like to experience. I like my games to have a point, I guess, and to go through a clear beginning, middle, and end to the game. So pretty much most of the games I play usually have a really good story behind it, accompanied with
Cool.
Good gameplay.
So then, what game or game series is it that you want to share with us that you dislike?
So the one that disappointed me so much, and I really hate this game, was Mega Man X7. It was released back on the PlayStation 2, and God, that game was horrible. I mean, and I love the Mega Man X series. I have bought this collection every time it comes out, like on every console, like the Mega Man X, like Legacy collections or whatever. Mega Man X is like my favorite old school like game ever. And Mega Man X1 and 2 were amazing. Mega Man X3, it was hard, but I still, it was fun. 4 was awesome. 5 and 6 existed. But 7, Jesus. That game legitimately pissed me off.
So what specifically about it that threw you off so much?
So this was the first 3D Mega Man X game. And they had the Mega Man X Legends, which, it was more like the original Mega Man, but in 3D. So I always wanted a Mega Man X 3D game, and I was really looking forward to it. I saw the ads, and I was like, hell yeah, finally, my favorite game series hitting 3D. And then I played it, and there was so much wrong with it. First of all, there's an auto-locking mechanism. You can literally just mash the stupid shoot button and hit every single enemy in the room. You don't even have to try to aim at anything. And all the Mega Man X games, they were very heavy on you had to have skill, you had to have strategy. Just dash jumping. In this game, you could just stand in one place and just hit that button, and you'd wipe out all the enemies in the screen. It transitioned between the 3D and 2D, and whenever it was in 3D, it was even worse because you could just walk in between all the enemies and not even fight anyone. there was nothing to stop you from doing that. It's like they took the concept of Mega Man X and did the exact opposite of it. And broke every single mechanic that worked in the other games in this game. And probably the worst thing was you could not even play as X. You can. I didn't play the game far enough to unlock him.
So then who's the Mega Man character you're playing as?
There's two. It's just this asshole named Axel, and Zero. And let me tell you, Zero is awesome in 3, and I love Zero. I don't know how you make Zero suck, but they accomplished that in Mega Man X7 because he is slow, sluggish. Everything about that game is just horrible. I hate that game. Yeah. I showed you the collection. I will not download the first 4 games are on the cart. Yeah, but the other 4 are downloadable games. You just enter the code and you download it. I won't download 7. I don't even want that on my Switch. That game screw that game. And boss fights, man. It's the same thing. You can stand in one space and just mash the button and you'll always hit the boss.
So obviously they couldn't figure out a way for you to lock onto enemies independently, so they just made it automatic.
In a way, I guess they did it very well, because they made it so that it's impossible to not hit your target. So I guess I can give them that much. But
they made it impossible for you to lose. Oh my god! So basically, it's Mega Man for 3-year-olds. Oh man!
Essentially.
All right. Well, how about any dishonorable mentions?
Probably Silent Hill, Shattered Memories. I didn't like that game. It was just weird to me. As far as I don't know, any of the Tony Hawk games after Underground kind of sucked, excluding the recent re-release of 1 and 2, or as I call it, Tony Hawk 12.
Why not?
But yeah, I don't know. Most of the games that I really hate that aren't Mega Man X7, I just kind of forget about.
Well, cool. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate your time. Now I know which Mega Man X to avoid. Thanks a lot, man.
Oh yeah.
I'm here with my friend Gino. He's going to be sharing with us a game that also infuriates him for this turkey game for the turkey month. So, Gino, to get us started, tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of gamer are you?
Not much of one these days, but when I do get to play, typically I'll play something that I just finished over the summer. I finished Death Stranding, which is not typical. So just anything that's out of the norm. I think anything that gets away from just violence and just needless guns and something that's a little bit more cerebral. I guess
definitely sounds like you from the types of games we've always talked about. So what game or game series are you sharing with us today that you detest?
It's interesting. I don't detest it now. I actually love it now, but I hated it when it came out. So it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade conversion to the NES, which is one of my most hated games of all time, but I love it now. I have to say that. I hate it now because, or I hated it then because, I mean, I think I was, when was that? 1990. Yeah. So I was 11. And so, you would get one game for Christmas or a game for your birthday, or maybe not either, or, whatever. So you had to really pick and choose your games. So I really wanted the Ninja Turtles one because, that arcade is amazing. It still is. And so, of course, I knew there would be cutbacks to the overall, but so it's Christmas Day, right? And you're all excited and you're like, oh man, like I got the game I wanted. And so then I start playing it and it's like, man, they really cut back, but of course, it's NES, it's 8-bit, I mean, my gosh, what do you expect? So I was just really like, it really like it didn't ruin the day. I mean, that's so first world problems. But yeah, so I just have this memory of like going to my room, just being like, man, this sucks. So like, and then, actually, so I felt it gave me this really bad impression, first up. And then as I played more of it over the week, I said, well, I've got it now. So then I started really loving it and really kind of appreciating the conversion. And now I think, man, God, how did they do this on this 8-bit machine? But yeah, that's the game that I detest. I detested at the time and detested for many years until I really got,
So then I take it the reason it bothered you is because it wasn't a very good conversion of the original arcade. But since then, you've come to appreciate the work that went into converting it to try to recover or to try to include as many of those arcade.
Yeah, sure. Right.
That's good.
Right. So, I mean, if you can imagine yourself being 11 years old and being like, man, but I wanted the arcade, then that's...
No, it's true, because I mean, it's one for me that I actually personally love because I played that one first before I ever played the arcade version. So for me, it's very different. Yeah. So for me, it was just when I played the arcade version, like, the arcade's just a better version of this one, and this one's so great. At the time, I had no idea that, one came before the other.
Right.
So even though it was called the arcade game.
Yeah.
So do you have any... So do you have any dishonorable mentions? Are there other games in that you've experienced that you feel let you down?
You know what? It's funny. I'm sure as a kid, I could probably name a lot of stuff. But like now that, I'm so much older, it's at the point where you kind of just know what you're going to like. And very rarely are you wrong. So I haven't disliked a game for a really long time. Probably the last game I really hated was the one that Little Big Planet. I bought it and I was like, man, this is going to be cool because wow, all this great reviews. It's going to be, I think I got 30 minutes into it. And I just wanted to chunk it in the trash. I mean, it's just, people love it, but man, screw that game. I mean, you want to talk about base design, like absolutely no charisma, I don't know. That's just me though. That's the one I would say is the one that I still. That's probably the last one I was like, man, why did I pay this money?
I don't dislike it as much as you did, but I definitely like. It's not like I was like, oh great, now I got to get a Little Big Planet 2. I was kind of like, it's all right, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Gino. Appreciate your time, man. Hey, George. Hope you're doing well tonight. Thank you for joining me.
Howdy. I'm doing very, very well.
Good. Glad to hear it. So, as you guys all know, we're doing a Turkey Games for Turkey Month. And George is going to share with us a game that he thinks is a big old turkey. But first question I have for you, George, is first tell us about yourself. Specifically, what kind of gamer are you?
I guess you could say I'm a PC gamer, but I also dabble a lot of Japanese games, which sometimes you can only find on consoles like PlayStation. I play a lot of RPGs. I play a lot of strategy games. And actually, my turkey game is an RPG. It was one of my first experiences with RPGs, and it soured me on the genre for a little while until I actually found something much, much better in the same genre. I do love the RPG genre now. It's one of my favorite ones. But thanks to this game, it actually got off to a pretty rocky start, kind of.
So, what do you mean by Japanese games?
Well, JRPGs, basically, or anime games, if you want to call them that have that kind of flavor. I'm particularly fond of the God Eater series, for example. I'm particularly fond of the strategy games like this Gaia, Ace Combat, which even though it's not an anime game, it does have a distinctly Japanese flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm also a fan of a lot of Western RPGs. Well, more the Elder Scrolls Morrowind is one of my favorite games of all time, for example, and it's not really a Japanese.
Right. Okay, so you didn't mean like games that were only released in Japan. You just meant games that are immediately developed for a Japanese audience, but then also happen to have Western releases.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, very good. So then go ahead, lead us off with your game or series that you have a problem with.
Okay, so when I was very, very young, one of the first games that I had an experience with on the Nintendo 64, after playing a little bit of NES and a little bit of SNES, was actually Quest 64. And oh my god, it was just it after going from something like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI to go to Quest 64, I was very disappointed. I was like, wow, is this the direction that RPG games are going to take? I mean, it looked really nice. They had all these 3D graphics, all these effects, all these cool, sound effects and whatnot. But the game was awful to play. It was awful to play. It tried to do some sort of weird mix of real-time strategy with, at the same time using turn-based tactics. And you were trapped inside this octagon, which felt like some sort of weird UFC fight, and you could only move within that octagon. And the story was just so generic. Like, there was basically no story other than, here, Brian, the character's name was Brian. Your father is missing, Brian. So go look for him and his book, Brian. And I just didn't know. It didn't connect with me the way that all those previous RPG games have connected with me. And I don't think I really even played another RPG game in the Nintendo 64 until Paper Mario came out. And that was way later. That Paper Mario was towards the end of the lifespan in the console. So it was a while before I played an RPG again after Quest 64 soured me on.
It's funny because I know your love of RPGs, so for you to say it was an RPG that ruined it for you, the moment you said it was on N64, I knew exactly what game you were talking about. And as a matter of fact, is one of the games I considered talking about for my worst game.
Oh my goodness, man! It sucks because when I first got my Nintendo 64, I had Super Mario 64, obviously, which came with the game itself, and I played that to death by that point, and I had gotten all the stars and everything, so there was nothing else I could do other than my lonely cartridge of Quest 64 that I had begun to play, and I was like, wow, this game is actually really bad. So I wouldn't have anything else to play. My only other option would be to replay Super Mario 64 until I eventually started getting more games for it. Like I eventually got Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and those saved me. But as far as a pure RPG game, I basically didn't play another one until Paper Mario came out on at the very end of the Nintendo 64 lifespan.
So would you credit Paper Mario as turning you back onto RPGs, or was it a game that you played later that really brought you back into the fold?
Yeah, not necessarily Paper Mario, because as far as an RPG game, it is an RPG game, but it's very light.
Right.
It's not something that you can really, immerse yourself into a world or anything like that. As opposed to being immersive, I feel like it's more like a Disney amusement park ride. You know, it's a great game. It's really fun, and it's got all these sights and sounds, and it's fantastic. But it's not really a world that you can lose yourself on.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until actually the Elder Scrolls Morrowind in 2002 that I fully felt that I became an RPG gamer one.
Yeah.
But we're talking about Quest 64, which deserves a big L. God, fuck that game.
It's funny because the thing I remember most about that game is you refer to it as an octagon. I remember it as a bubble. Not all that different from like Vagrant Story, except in Vagrant Story, it played so much better. You know, where you have that area of effect where you can, this is your area where you can fight and cast spells and whatever. But yeah, it's like it was one of those games that was trying to be easy to play, but did it so poorly that it was not fun to play at all.
And not memorable either. Like there's just I could not name like a single enemy or villain or antagonist other than the big bad Mammon, or as we used to call him back then, Mammon.
I gotta take out this Mammon, bro.
Yeah. What made it even worse actually was when back when I first had my Nintendo 64, because Quest 64 was the second game that I got for it, other than, you know, Super Mario 64. You needed the game pack to save your progress.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't tied to the cartridge itself. You needed to have the what was it called? The controller pack.
The controller pack. See, there's a Rumble pack. I don't remember it was called a controller pack, but I remember it was the one that you had to save.
Yeah, it was the memory card that you stuck to the back of the Nintendo 64 controller. Yeah. You needed that to save your progress, and I never got one.
Oh my god!
So for the most part, I would just get to a certain part and then just lose interest and then turn it off, and then I'll be like, I'll start again later. And then when I finally got a controller pack, I got about halfway through the game when I was just like, it's not worth it.
It never got any better.
No, it never did. It never did. The story never developed. The characters never became more than names on the screen. It was just, gosh, man, what a disappointment. What missed potential.
Yeah, no kidding. Do you remember who the developer was for that game?
No, I remember that Konami was involved in it somehow.
Oh.
I think they were either the publisher or the developer of some sort. And because I remember when you turned the game on, you saw the Konami symbol, but I don't think they were the developers.
I'm gonna have to look that up because now I'm curious. Yeah. All right, so now that we've established the game you dislike the most and why, how about you give us some of those honorable mentions or dishonorable mentions?
Dishonorable mentions. I would have to say I was really excited for this one game called the Firefly Diaries for PS Vita. It was supposed to be this kind of spooky platformer, but it controlled really weirdly. Like you had to move a firefly around the map, and your character tried kind of its best to follow around it. So it was kind of awkward. And I was really excited for it because it has such a unique and beautiful art style, and the music was chanting, and it just had this great look to it. And then once you actually played it, it wasn't actually that fun to play. I mean, it was challenging. So I don't know if I got filtered by it. You know, that's a possibility. But it was kind of a disappointment, especially because I had such high expectations for it. And another one that maybe people will call me foolish for hoping that it would be any good is Anthem by BioWare. Anthem. It looks so cool. The trailers look so cool. The spacesuits and the fighting and everything like that. But as we learn more and more about it, it just sounded worse and worse. And I'm just like, ugh. I finally got it for $5 and played a little bit of it. And yeah, the hate was well deserved. It was just a very clunky, awkward game, honestly. It's like they didn't learn any of the lessons from I guess Mass Effect Andromeda.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, those two I guess would be the most recent dishonorable mentions. But the one that really left its mark on me, Quest 6.
I can tell. I can see the pain in your eyes. Well, thank you, George. I appreciate your time. Do you have any final words before we move out?
No, just thank you for having me. And ladies and gentlemen, play Metal Gear Survive. Later.
And not Quest 64.
Not Quest 64.
It's good. Love to eat the turkey like a good boy should. Cause it's turkey to eat so good. A turkey for me.